It's
7-Eleven.
7:11. Want to start up? Let's do it. All right. So let's call the formal meeting to order. Let's do a pledge of allegiance. Flags behind you all. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. All right, I'll do a more formal roll call. I see Councilmember Rhodes, Demansky, Grant, Waukee, Weatherby, and Mansfield. The mayor is in attendance, the city administrator is in attendance, and the city attorney is online. Our first item on the agenda is public comment. If anyone in the physical public wants to make a comment, now is your opportunity to do so. Okay. If you want. Okay.
Good evening. It was great to see the July 4th celebration continuing in this building. Now is the time to put financial resources into the long-neglected ferry dock. Now is not the time to let the state shut down one of Beacon's historic treasures. With the population of Beacon and Newburgh exploding, now is the time to lead the charge. Degrading historic districts with the overabundance of poorly planned expansions, particularly large-scale projects such as hotels, restaurants, retail, and unaffordable apartments, has already negatively affected designated historic districts throughout our historic city by altering the existing character and potentially violating established rules and guidelines intended to protect these HDLO areas. We must bring in a legitimate preservation review board immediately and not continue it as the architectural review board, which is only an arm of the planning board. Claiming to be an expert in preservation while allowing this type of destruction to erase our history is neither showing foresight, expertise, nor compassion. This municipality must immediately halt all current and future development projects with an urgent building moratorium and begin working on our new 2027 comprehensive plan without delay. That's right around the corner. We cannot afford to wait another day, week, month, or year. Many council members will not be returning, and the community feels that they've already left in spirit. We need to just all gather and really stop this train that's out of control. And then hearing a council member publicly state that they are a consultant for developers is really unethical. So I'm just going to put it out there, yeah. Just like a thorn in your spine and whatever, a heel, and I keep repeating myself, but nobody seems to listen. And I'll just continue to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the physical public want to make a comment? Ben, anyone in the online public?
If you're on Zoom and you'd like to make a public comment this evening, you'll need to use the raise hand option. If you're joining us by YouTube, you will need to join us instead on the Zoom link, which you can find on our city website calendar. And lastly, if you're joining by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. As of now, we have no hands raised on Zoom.
Okay. I think until a couple of police officers future police officers turn up, unless they're here, I may skip on the agenda. Let me know, Chief.
They're in the hallway.
They may be waiting on family, so
They're here.
Oh, you're right.
I think they were
Yeah,
waiting
you're right.
for
We
their
got time. Sorry, guys. I'm out of order. All right. So let me do a couple of things first. Let's do reports from the council, and then I got a proclamation, and then we'll do these. All right. George, you want to start up?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Just a few things. A reminder that the applications for the Plus One ADU program, which is the funding to, it's up to $125,000 per household, and it's income-based. Those applications will be available to apply for on July 14th, and you can get that information at hudsonriverhousing.org. So I hope everyone takes advantage of that program, because it would be great. And I guess there was some mention of from the public about the ferry, and I was wondering, Chris, if you could give us an update at some point, either now or in the future, we'd appreciate that. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Good evening. I wanted to thank all those who participated in making it happen, the Declaration of Independence reading on July 4th. Also, I was wondering about the Save the Ferry. I know there's an event tomorrow at 6 p.m. at the Newburgh Ferry Dock for those interested, trying to try to save the ferry from crossing between Newburgh and Beacon, and I'd also like more information on that. Also, online, I have not personally heard anything, but online I'm seeing numerous residents having issues registering for individual pool passes, especially as a family. It seems like they can register 3, and if they have more, they can't, and then they can't take away the other ones. So I'm wondering if we could have a discussion about that to find out if there is an issue and what the city can do about that. Also, I know there was issues with the water pressure at the Glendale Estates, and just wondering, I know there is like an upgrade that was listed in the capital plan, but it's just saying like a Glendale booster control upgrade in 2028. And I know the issue has been fixed, but there's some concern that this is just a patch and that it's going to happen again. So I'm just wondering if we can get an update on if there are any needs that we need to look at to work on sooner in that area. Thank you.
I will jump onto the ferry train and just reiterate what Pam said, that there is a gathering at 6 p.m. tomorrow on the Newburgh side of the ferry dock. I know that this is a potentially complicated issue and would like an update on how the city is viewing the potential cancellation of this ferry service that has existed for many generations at this point. I'll say in terms of the last couple of years, my understanding is that yes, ridership is low, but that the MTA itself may have mismanaged their data in fixing the schedule without community feedback before setting a schedule that then had low ridership. And I'll also reiterate that in terms of the city taking a stance on prioritizing non-personal vehicular travel between ourselves and our neighbors, that having a ferry is potentially a very valuable resource for this community far into the future. And the same as with the Clearwater and other opportunities for folks to experience the river, not from a vehicle, but actually on the river, that is a really valuable option for our community to be able to, traverse and get where they need to go. I have a lot that I would like to say in terms of what has happened over the last few weeks, but I'll try and keep myself brief and say that I really appreciate the organizers of the Juneteenth event that happened. That was a really wonderful community gathering, and also thank you to the weather for holding, because it was a strong threat of rain. Thank you to everybody who put in planning support for the July 4th event, both Dennis, who spoke to us a few weeks ago, and the event of the reading of the Declaration of Independence, and also thank you to our Recreation Department for putting together a spectacular fireworks show, and also for providing earplugs for those who may be sensorily affected by such a display. And I also want to acknowledge that since our last meeting, there was the presence of ICE, or Immigration Customs Enforcement agents, here in Beacon. Thank you to the mayor for putting out a statement clarifying the city's role or lack thereof directly after that incident. I won't name, for privacy reasons, the person who was taken, but they were a Beacon resident for a time, and I do believe that the city has an obligation to be responsible in terms of understanding where that person was taken, where they might be, and what may have happened to them. And if anybody in the community has any questions about the presence of ICE in our community, I encourage folks to reach out to the city or even to me, myself. I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have. And I am assuming that this mayor or our administrator may say more about this, but I want to acknowledge that that's been happening in our community, and it's been affecting a lot of people in a big way. And I'll leave it at that for now. And it's been a long couple of weeks, but thank you for being engaged in our community.
I don't have anything that wasn't already said, so.
Thanks for your brevity, Amber. Yeah, I'm glad. I'll just throw in, I'm curious about the ferry as well. Hope we can hear some comments tonight just to inform discussions that would likely be had. Curious about, Chris, a paving construction schedule update. I know this summer's going on. I think things are on target, but it'd be great to hear just an update on where things stand, and particularly with Teller and Fishkill Ave. It is summer season. I was knocked out from our last meeting by what I believe was COVID, though those tests are pretty inconclusive, but I lost my sense of smell, but it's still around, so public health notice on that one, but also on the public health notice, summer season, missed my opportunity to really talk about how cool bike helmets are. Love seeing kids around on bikes and scooters, but head injuries are so prolific, and bike helmets are really cool, and I think I do my best, and my family got great-looking helmets in the last couple of weeks. I really recommend people wear those. And lastly, I'll share that the summer 2025 edition of the City Council survey is up on the City Council webpage. There are 4 survey links. One is for homeowners and renters, and others for business owners. It is half similar to what was up for the fall version, in that there are opportunities for people to provide detailed feedback on issues of concern or items they want to praise in the city and want to see maintained. If there's an issue of concern, there's an opportunity to give feedback on solutions. Much of what was shared from a number of people who provided feedback in the survey in the previous edition focused on the desire for better communications, which has been a good conversation topic that we are continuing to have, and ways we can improve communication from and among and within the community from the city. And so there are a number of questions in this current edition that give people the opportunity to talk about the way they like to receive information, the types of information they want to receive, and similar. Again, there's a version for homeowners and renters, another for business owners, and both are in English and Spanish. And so I encourage and welcome the help in spreading the word about that resource.
Thanks, Jeff. Similar to Amber, I won't belabor the point about the many events that we had on the last 3 weeks that I want to thank all the organizers for, particularly with the 4th of July Declaration of Independence, reading that next year, as many of you may already know, is America's 250th birthday, and both the federal government, the state government, the county government, and Dennis Pavlok and his committee are working together to make sure kind of that they have all events coordinated. So there'll be a beacon involvement next year, but TBD exactly how that will fold into everything else that's going on. I wanted to also echo kind of what happened with ICE in the community and thank the mayor and our police chief for getting information to make sure what was going on, so that we could be informed as a community and understand the impact in our community. I also want to thank the rec department, not just for the 4th of July fireworks on July 5th, but also for the fabulous bathrooms that we now have going up in South Avenue. And you might already have this on your update, Chris, but if we have any updates about when those might be accessible, maybe they already are. They seem to be plumbing them and doing things with them when I was last driving by. So if we have any date for that yet, that would be great. And then my office hours will be next Friday, July 18th, from 4 to 6 p.m., either at Pole Hill Park, or if it's a day like today, I will not be sitting outside, and then I'll be at Bank Square Coffee House. And I will pass it to you, Lee.
Thanks. Just a couple of things. One, the Declaration of Independence that others mentioned. I always appreciate the opportunity to go and the opportunity to read a piece of the Declaration. And then other than that, I was away the last couple of weeks I just want to thank Chris and Ben for covering while I was out, including time that you had to cover while you were supposedly on vacation as well. Chris, thank you for that. I was on the island of Cyprus, which is the birthplace of my parents. We hadn't been there for 20 years. My parents were the only ones to leave the island. They each had 3 sisters, and as a result, I had 21 first cousins on the island of Cyprus, the majority of whom attended college on an island that doesn't have a college. 4 of those live with my family at different times to go to university in the United States. We were there for a wedding. It was actually my nephew was marrying a woman who is Palestinian but American, and it was a ton of fun. I also note that one of my cousins is the city manager of Limassol. Apparently city managers and administrators are all named Chris, because this one is also a Christos. And got to meet the Limassol mayor, which was a lot of fun. The only other thing I'll mention about Cyprus is, for those of you who may not know, it is a divided island. It is roughly the size of Connecticut. It is 80% ethnically Greek and 20% ethnically Turkish. It is a divided island. The internationally recognized side is the Greek side. The other side is recognized only by Turkey. The 80% majority Greeks ended up with 30% of the resources due to an invasion by the Turkish army in 1974. It's been that way for 50 years. Mind you, I'm very clear that both sides are at fault for some of that, and I would wish they could sort this out. I was in the capital of Nicosia. Nicosia is the last divided capital in the world, which is quite sad. I was at one of the checkpoints. There's a local bar there called Checkpoint Charlie, which is an homage to Berlin. And my wife and I had the opportunity to both tour the old city of Nicosia on both sides, the Turkish side and the Greek side, and would love to see a resolution at some point. But it just also reflects the difficulty of issues in the Middle East, and it's not a straightforward site, and there's a lot of nationalism going on. So I'll stop there, but happy to chat with you about my time there, and I'll even talk to you in Greek if you want, Amber. And I'll hand it off to Chris.
Okay, so you asked for a bunch of updates. Generally, it would be helpful if you let me know earlier in the day if you want an update on something, but I'm going to do my best here. So why don't we start with South Avenue Park. I'm waiting to hear back from Mark when the bathrooms are going to be open. It looks like he's responding to my text right now. Next 2 weeks. So we're getting close to done. The bathroom facility was delivered. The electricity and the plumbing is being hooked up. The basketball and the tennis courts have been resurfaced. You may remember we had a discussion that we were going to repave the basketball court, and then next year we'll coat it with the acrylic. So it will just be a basic striping this year. We redid all the fencing, we did a lot of landscaping, the walkway has been redone, and we're looking forward to doing ribbon cutting with all of you in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So stay tuned. And thanks for the patience to all the people that use the tennis and basketball courts. The courts are actually open, the bathrooms just are not completely done. So on the ferry, I want to just give a little bit of history and background that's important. So the city owns the permanent wooden dock at the waterfront. To that, Metro North had a long-term lease to have a floating dock that could embark and disembark passengers, and that's needed because the river is tidal, and there really is no way to put a boat right next to the wooden dock. It's just not designed for that. So the city signed its first agreement with Metro North to do that in 2004 and started the ferry service in 2005. I was actually part of that effort when I was with Congressman Hinchey's office. We had a 10-year agreement that was renewed another 10 years in 2014 to 2024. In 2024, Metro North was not ready to do a long-term agreement. So we did a 6-month extension, and then we did a subsequent 6-month extension. We were never notified that they were going to shut down the service. In fact, we learned about it from reading it in the newspaper. Subsequently, we had a conversation with them in which they conveyed that the dock had been damaged over the winter. We had originally thought the plan was they were going to replace it. I know that the operator of the ferry had even offered to pay the capital cost of that, and some of the local officials have even talked about doing that. What it came down to Metro North was they were spending over $2 million a year to run a ferry that was averaging 31 or 32 riders each day. So for 60 trips, you were essentially paying over $120 per trip. So they notified us that they are not renewing the lease for the floating dock. We really don't have control over the service because the operational costs, the real burden there. I understand they're operating a bus that cost $1.50, and that's what they did generally when the ice shut down the river and they had to use alternate means to get people across. They have committed to make that a free bus and also extend the pickups so that the issue with the cars coming into Beacon would be less. And they think they can do that more efficiently. For us, it leaves us, for the first time in a generation, options to think about what we do with the dock. It was very onerous to use the dock when Metro North was there. The mayor and I have talked initially about some planning process later in the year to look at how do we arrange that with a new floating dock so that Clearwater could be there, so that the Bannerman Island boat has a better docking, and that maybe we do tourism operations. I know people haven't given up on the service, but having worked with Metro North, I don't know that they're going to be very responsive, and it is their decision ultimately. The Teller Fishkill Avenue project is still proceeding. We were supposed to be done at the end of this month, but we had additional work that we added with the new sidewalks, and we've also contended with a lot of subsurface utility work. So we had hoped for Teller to be done by now, but there was some trenching that had to be redone. I'm hoping that we will be paving by the end of summer. Certainly by the end of fall, we'll have all of Fishkill and Teller fully repaved, all the sidewalks done. We did hit a bump with the sidewalks where some of the sidewalks seem to have a mix of concrete that's flaking, and so we're going back and forth. We're probably going to make the contractor redo those, so you may see people saying, why are you ripping up new concrete? Because it wasn't to the standard that it should be. On the Glendale station, which serves the Helen Court neighborhood, there was a faulty pressure switch that caused issues with the supply of drinking water to houses. This is a pump station that pushes the water up the hill because they actually are well above the level of our filtration plant and our tank. We believe we have it resolved after bringing in an expert on that. Again, we do have a replacement of that facility in the capital program. We will look at whether or not that needs to be accelerated. At this point, I'm not hearing from the water and superintendent that that requires immediate action. So we think we have that dealt with. Boy, I think I got all the updates. You want to throw anything else out?
What'd you do on your time off?
That's none of your business.
Good answer.
Correct answer, yes.
Okay, we good?
I do know, I took a bunch of calls about
Yeah, I
ICE,
know.
and I do want to say something about ICE. I want to make clear to people that the city had no prior knowledge of any ICE operation in the city. We have subsequently checked into it to make sure that it was a federal law enforcement activity and not just a kidnapping. But we are in a very delicate balance here where we can't interfere with the police authorities of federal immigration. So we're not helping them, but we certainly are not able to also intervene and stop them. And I want to make that clear because I know people on both sides have been saying we're not doing enough, or we should be cooperating more. there's no duty for the city to have to cooperate, and there's no duty for the federal agencies to give us prior notice and to coordinate when they do that. But we are trying to open communication channels so we can confirm there was, in fact, a federal operation.
The only thing I'll add is absent a court order. If there is a court order, that will be a different issue for the city.
Yeah, and this has been largely moot. I mean, up until a few weeks ago, this was never even an issue.
Yeah.
You passed your policy, I think, back in 2017,
Yeah.
and I don't recall that there was ever an activity here.
Okay. I got one other thing. I've got a proclamation I want to read, and then we'll start up on resolutions. Okay. So I note in the Highlands Current that it's turning 15, so in honor of that, I've got a proclamation. Whereas July 4th, 2025 marks the 15th anniversary of the Highlands Current, a publication which provides quality local coverage, initially of the town of Phillipstown and subsequently also the city of Beacon. And whereas since the first published issue in July of 2010, the Highlands Current has proven to be a reliable source of informative and educational news and to uphold the critical values of independent nonprofit journalism through their work. And whereas over the past 15 years, the publication has become an indispensable local news source on the topics of local government meetings and decisions, environmental issues, arts and culture, community events, elections, and much more. And whereas the City of Beacon recognizes the important role that objective local journalism plays in our democracy, both in fostering transparency and encouraging civic participation. Now therefore, I, Lee Kyriakou, as Mayor of the City of Beacon, do hereby issue this proclamation in honor of the 15th anniversary of the Highlands Current and wish to both congratulate their staff, in particular Beacon editor Jeff Sims, and to recognize their dedicated readership for this important and impressive accomplishment. Thank you.
Yeah, bravo, Jeff.
Do you mind if I would have said this in my report, but I didn't want to take away from the proclamation. I just wanted to mention how exceedingly rare it is to have local news covered by local people and not gotten from a wire service, and that we're so fortunate to have this paper. I look forward to when it comes out. There's always something interesting, and I don't know where you can find another resource like this, so I just encourage everyone to support the Highlands Currents in whatever way you can. Read it at least, and if you're able to donate a couple dollars, you can get it in your mailbox every week. But again, I just think we're so fortunate, and I'm really grateful for the coverage that they provide and the information they give to our community, so thank you.
Oh, I just got
Is this the time when Jeff does his speech? He's been working on it all day. Oh, okay, got
Oh, look forward to that.
I have one last one since I just got an email notice. The Red Cross is doing a blood drive at Veterans Building on Thursday in the afternoon. My appointment is at 2:15, but I believe they have other appointments, and if you'd like to donate blood, it's always valuable to do. All right, let's do our resolutions. We're in attendance? Okay, so the first two are resolutions appointing police officers. So the first one, I'd like to get a motion and a second to appoint Jose Vasquez to the position of police officer.
Motion.
Second.
And so I got a motion and a second. And would the chief do the little repeat of Jose? And then we'll vote.
Sure, I'll be a little bit more brief, but we're very fortunate because Jose comes to us from the NYPD, so he has already got a police academy under his belt and about 4.5 years of experience, so we're very much looking forward to having him on the team.
Okay. Any questions or comments that we didn't cover in workshop about a half hour ago?
I'll just say I appreciate that Jose comes with experience in this community, or at least an adjacent community, and that he's bilingual.
Okay. So all in favor of appointing Jose Vasquez to the position of police officer, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? So that was unanimous. Let's do the other one, and then we'll do the signing of both together and the swearing in of both together, okay? So the second one, I'd like a motion and a second to appoint Jake McCollum to the position of police officer.
Motion.
Second.
So that's Pam and Paloma. Again, any you would add about Jake? That
Just again, another candidate we're very excited to have. He's grown up and come up here in Beacon. He comes from a family that's been dedicated to public service here in Beacon, and we're very glad to have him.
when you say public service in Beacon, do you have a specific service you have in mind?
His father was the head of the water department,
Yeah,
as I mentioned. That.
absolutely. So, any other comments from the council?
Sorry, I didn't ask this in workshop. Assuming we're about to approve both of these, do you know what your current vacancy is like and any other retirements or openings you already know about coming up this year?
For this year, this will, excuse me, this would put us at 32.
Out of 36.
Out of 36, and I'm hoping to bring another candidate at the next meeting.
Great.
Great news.
And we're going to pass a law that lieutenants can't retire
Or chiefs.
ever.
That's right.
Yes.
Thank you.
As far as retirements, we have none coming up this year.
Okay,
So
great.
we don't have anything on the horizon until 2026 for that.
Thank you.
Okay, so all in favor of appointing Jake McCollum to the position of police officer, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? That also passes unanimously, so at this stage, I will go up and borrow.
So, and with each, we'd ask the candidate to come up and do this signing, and then you can come up with your family, and we'll get a photo of all of you. This close to the power podium.
Don't let it go to your head.
Let's see if I've got this right. Okay. How are you? All right, good. Raise your right hand, repeat after me. I, Jose Vasquez.
I, Jose Vasquez,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of police
the
officer
duties of police officer
of the City of Beacon
of the City of Beacon
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
All right, congratulations. All right. There's a secret handshake in there. You need to sign this here.
Thank you.
And any other pictures or?
You want to do one
Does
with
the
your
family
family?
wanna
Jose, do you want to do one with your family?
Hey, guys.
We can do that. We'll move. He's the better photographer anyway. Okay, ready? Smush in a little bit like you like it. Excellent. We'll send those out.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, you'll have them on Facebook in 20 minutes.
Welcome aboard. All right. Jake McCollum. Sounds very familiar. You ready? All right. How you doing? Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, Jake McCollum,
I, Jacob Miller,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of police officer
the duties of police officer
of the City of Beacon
of the City of Beacon
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone out there? Really?
That doesn't want to come up.
All right, we good? These classmates? Oh, yeah? No kidding. Very cool. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yes,
allowed
you're
to leave.
yes, you're allowed to leave.
All right. Thank you all.
Congratulations, thank you.
All right. Next, I'm looking for a motion and a second to appoint Andrew Smythe to the position of automotive mechanic.
Motion.
Second.
So that's George and Jeff? Yep. Okay. Chris, is there anything you want to add that you didn't say at 7:05?
No.
Any comments from the council that we didn't make at 7:06? All right, all in favor of appointing Andrew Smythe to the position of automotive mechanic, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. The next one is the capital program. So I need a motion and a second to adopt the 2026 to 2030 capital plan.
Motion.
So that's
Second.
Molly and Amber. Chris, you want to tell us a little bit about it, just to remind folks what it is, which year matters the most, and which years are a little bit more guesswork?
Sure, just a brief recap. The capital program for 2026 to 2030, the 5 years, and the financing plan for 2026, which is the pivotal year, were introduced back on May 27th. We presented those at council with Susan Tucker, and then subsequently held a public hearing on June 16th. The proposed capital program is $29 million for 5 years, but the important number is $6.5 million in authorized funding for 2026. And that's $2.87 million in our general fund, $2.68 million in the water fund, and $970,000 in the sewer fund. We really didn't have anything other than positive feedback, particularly about the proposal to do some upgrades at Memorial Park, and we'd ask you to approve the 5-year and the financing plan tonight.
Comments or questions?
This is not in the plan, and I'm really prepared to vote for it, but I was reminded of the progress that we've been making with the visitor center, which I know is not, we are currently co-managing with Dutchess County Tourism, particularly in terms of staffing. We have anecdotally talked about improvements to the bathrooms, the potential to make that more accessible to the public on an ongoing basis. There are two other smaller things. These aren't quite capital, but I thought I would take the opportunity to bring them up around the potential of adding a water bottle filling station, which I know that we have incorporated in our public restrooms, and also wanted to bring up the possibility of hosting a community fridge there, which I know is complicated, and I'm not looking for a comprehensive answer on either of those items, but I wanted to take the opportunity to bring those thoughts up as we're investing in various public spaces.
Thanks.
Okay. Other comments, questions?
Just to say, I generally appreciate you and Susan in particular, Susan Tucker, working closely on this, both on the kind of what's on our immediate 2026 horizon, and then also in the years after that, and helps us as a council also kind of understand how planning is done and kind of think about the future as well. So thank you as always for your work.
Thank you.
Yeah, I will add that, having been through 30 years of these, this group in particular, Susan and also Chris, make our capital planning and our regular budgeting both incredibly strong and very transparent. So I'm just grateful for that. I will point out the one thing we're chasing down now is, now that you kind of watch how we do this, whatever the biggest item we've got to spend money on is finding someone else to pay for it. And that one is the reservoir is the big one, right, that we're looking for money for?
The Melzinga Dam. So we're applying for 2 grants right now.
Yeah. And, you know, as we do that successfully is how we get stuff done, right? Because our tax base obviously has limitations, so.
And I do want to reiterate that the quality of what we bring you is really a testament to the department heads. They do all of the legwork. A lot of them prioritize this and have this bigger, broader vision than I have on it. So I do want to give them all credit. They do a great job on this.
Cool. It's a pleasure to oversee a group that actually is empowered to do their jobs and does them well, so. Okay, so all in favor of approving the capital plan for 2026 to 2030, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. And Paloma, you had a couple questions. We'll get back to you.
Yeah.
All right. So that handles item 4. The next one, I'm looking for a motion and a second on amending the zoning code concerning accessory dwelling units. Okay.
Motion.
So that's Amber
Second.
and Molly. Nick, if you're still there, you're going to give us a summary of what we've been working on, because we've been doing it on and off for several months now.
I am, Mayor. Thank you. So the council introduced a local law to amend the zoning code regarding accessory apartments, also known as ADUs, in the spring. Procedurally, since that time, the council has referred it to the Dutchess County Planning Board, which was favorably in support of the local law and had some minor comments. Also referred to the City Planning Board, which reviewed it at 2 meetings, offered substantive comments that were workshops with the council. And it was also subject to a number of public hearings and a number of workshop discussions that resulted in a number of modifications to the proposed local law over the past several months, with the final version being included in this agenda packet. The local law is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan goal of promoting housing availability and affordability in the city. The local law itself eliminates provides that accessory apartments are permitted in all zoning districts, as opposed to just certain ones in the past, but may only be allowed on a lot containing a single-family residence, which is a current requirement. The requirement that one of the two, either the principal structure of the accessory apartment be owner-occupied, remains. The proposed local law eliminates the maximum size of the accessory apartment and doesn't require site plan approval unless it requires exterior additions that involve the conversion of the existing accessory building or construction of a new accessory building. Instead, are subject to site plan review by the planning board if the proposed accessory apartment has a floor area over 1,000 total square feet and exceeds 50% of the floor area of a primary building's floor area. They also require site plan approval if they don't meet the setback requirements pursuant to the schedule of regulations for accessory buildings on residential lots. And that's a brief summary of the local law.
Okay. Any comments, questions from the council?
Yeah, I had a question, Nick, about the resolution. My understanding is part of what we're doing is also cleaning up some setback requirements. And I'm wondering if it would behoove us to call that out specifically in the resolution, or if that's fine.
I think it's fine because it's part of a local law and it's being discussed at a council meeting, and it's certainly highlighted in our firm's memo as well. If you wish for me to add that language in the resolution just for the sake of memorializing, I can certainly craft that after the fact with the council's permission.
I would agree with that being appropriate. I appreciate that this resolution enumerates quite a bit of the history of this law and the deliberation that this council has gone through around this law. My concern overall with passing this law is not so much the substance necessarily, as I'm concerned that in terms of communications, that there are things that we're doing in this law that are going to continue the misconception that the city is operating in an underhanded way in terms of allowing a certain density without being explicit about what we're doing again, I'll reiterate what I've said in the past, that I do believe that the city has capacity for functionally increasing the amount of multi-family housing that we allow across the city. I just want to make sure that the city is communicating what we are doing with clarity to the public.
Well, I can provide a little bit of clarity. We have had accessory apartments since the 1990s allowed in Beacon. I believe the number of single-family homes that have added an accessory unit is a very low percentage, and I don't expect there to be a very high percentage going forward. What we have been doing in this law is simply making it a little bit easier to get an accessory dwelling unit and to alter some of the restrictions on its use. The one restriction that is not changing is that it needs to be owner occupied, and that's critically important. We've had that, again, since the 1990s. We haven't had any issues that I can recall in those 30 years with respect to an accessory unit in an owner-occupied single-family dwelling. So, you know, if people have some concerns that are being expressed on social media, and I will admit I don't go there, and I would just point out to folks, take anything you see with lots of grains of salt, because the odds of it being right are not that high. They might be right, but I might also be wrong. So let me just point all those out. Any other things to clarify? I'm happy to clarify on this area. It is zoning. I know this area very well. We're not doing anything in terms of changing the density of our single-family neighborhoods. If you check the census data, the density of our single-family neighborhoods has been falling because the average household size has been declining in the last 20 years. And all this is doing is providing an opportunity to recreate the same density that was there a generation ago.
Yeah, to follow up on what Lee was saying, that for those who maybe haven't been following our many, many discussions in full detail, if you are the owner occupier of a single-family home anywhere in Beacon, particularly if you are potentially looking at creating another unit in your currently single-family home to make it what might in all effects be a two-family, as long as the second unit is 1,000 square feet or less, our hope is this now makes it easier to do that if you are maintaining the owner occupancy in your home. So you might have purchased a home that, as Lee mentioned, perhaps already has some of the remnants of when it used to be a multifamily home, and so you might already be thinking about that. So if you are intrigued by that and want to find out more about that and still have questions, you're welcome to reach out to the building department, assuming we pass this today, or any city council member, to find out more about it. Lee, you also kind of tied this idea of owner occupancy, and I know Chris, along with our short-term rental law, sometimes the building department figuring out the best way to determine owner occupancy has sometimes been a challenge, and I kind of understand there's been some work around that. So one thing that I'm hoping for maybe later this year, if it makes sense, is if the building department can provide an update to us as a council and to the public about how that owner occupancy is being determined. There might be some things that are shifting in the future depending on what the building department thinks might work better for us. So I think that's just as we tie more of these laws to owner occupancy and try to also create flexibility within that, I think that could be really useful in the future.
Okay, the only other thing I'd add is when we passed this initially in the 1990s, the group that we were especially interested in were seniors who were living, you know, as empty nesters in a house that was bigger than the one or the two remaining seniors who were there. And we heard concerns of, I can't afford to pay the taxes, and this was one way so that a senior could stay in their house, cover the expenses, and, you know, kind of make it work. And I think that was traditionally the most common form of an accessory dwelling unit. The other thing I note is our original law not only had an owner occupancy requirement, but had a every 2-year inspection requirement, which I believe is still in there. Is that correct, Nick?
That is correct, yes.
And so that is an absolute, you know, method of determining the occupancy issue as well every 2 years. So I would be interested in hearing from our building department as he's getting his feet wet on how they're doing on this issue. So, okay. Other comments or questions? And again, always happy to provide the discussion that helps, project communication into the city. So this is, very good communication, and feel free to ask questions that engender us to have these conversations, because to the extent that anyone's listening, at least we're putting this information out.
Right, and just to that point, to dovetail, I forgot to mention what George pointed out earlier, the
Oh,
new
yes.
ADU program too. So the combination of this law having fewer city-led requirements and the potential for potentially more funding to help with an ADU construction or conversion if you're doing it within the envelope of your existing home, that if you are listening and have questions about that and have kind of thought that maybe that's a good use for your kind of current living situation, please do reach out to the city to find out more.
Yeah, and I'll just reiterate what I said before, that, again, that forward-facing communication stance from the city, I think, is very important. I know we had a conversation a few months back about adding a housing section to our website. I hope that information about that Plus One ADU program, most critically, but if there are any, not everybody listens to these city council meetings. I am so grateful that the Highlands Currents covers these city council meetings to get some of this information out into the public another way. But again, I just want to reiterate that I think it's important that we're continuing to proactively communicate what the laws that we're passing do and don't do, so that these perceptions in the community, whether they're on Facebook, which I don't pay a lot of attention to either, or elsewhere, have a counter in terms of actual factual information.
And I would just say that we have had good response on the 1+ ADU. There are 57 people on the list already from Beacon. So there's now 10 municipalities in it, and we are by far about half of all of the applications they've received. So I think we did a pretty good job getting the word out on that program, at least.
That's great.
Any other comments, questions about this proposed amendment to the zoning code? All right, so all in favor of amending the zoning code to the changes on accessory apartment requirements, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you, Nick. So the next one is some traffic safety changes. Can I get a motion and a second to adopt the changes to the vehicle and traffic code?
Motion. Second.
So
Those two.
Molly and Paloma?
Very excited about this intersection.
There you go. Ben, are you around to tell us about these?
Yes, Mayor. And I will preface my remarks by saying that the law is in the same form that it's been in since originally drafted, so I won't belabor the same explanation that you've all heard probably 3 or 4 times at this point now. I'll just simply say there's 4 primary changes that this law would make. The first is it extends the no parking that already exists from the intersection of Verplank and North Chestnut for a total distance of 80 feet from Verplank on the east side of North Chestnut. Secondly, it would add a no parking area along the access road of Verplank Avenue at the intersection of Willow Street due to the narrowness of the road and to accommodate emergency vehicle access. It would add an additional stop sign, a pair of stop signs at Washington and Tillett to make it a 4-way stop. And lastly, it would extend the no parking at the intersection of Willow and Main for a distance of 65 feet from the intersection of Main on the west side and 90 feet from the intersection of Main on the east side. Happy to go into more detail if it's helpful, but it's largely the same explanation that I've given previously, and I don't want to give you too much repetition.
Go ahead, Amber.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question about, I think some follow-up from the public comments or public hearing we had on this. There was a comment that was, I don't believe, fully related to what we're doing at this point, but a comment on Verplank in general. And Ben, is that something that the Traffic Safety Committee can kind of circle back on or has already considered? I thought it was a substantive and interesting comment, and one that I would like to follow up on.
I'm not sure.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Ben.
I was just going to say, I'd have to refresh that comment. I believe it was from the public hearing on the 16th of June.
Yep.
Happy to take a look at that again. I do not believe it was discussed at the last Traffic Safety Committee meeting, but to the extent that it's substantive and helpful and you guys are interested in us following up on it, I can certainly add it on to our next agenda.
Yeah, I had a, sorry.
Let me just clarify. I
Yeah.
think I know what that one is before you bring up a different one.
I think we're talking about the same one.
Is it, it was North Chestnut
Yeah.
and Verplank.
Yeah.
And if I have it right, the comment was to extend the no parking beyond where we were talking, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're all hearing the same one. That's the issue, Ben, that you may want to ask the Traffic Safety Committee on the next one. You know, I don't think it's necessary. I'm not going to vote differently on it, but it was a different comment, and I think you've got three of us saying we all heard it.
Yeah, that's my opinion as well. It doesn't change what I'm thinking about for this, but I think that it would be good to take a look at that
Yeah.
information and see if we want to act on it or not.
Yeah, and just to summarize for you, Ben, the question for the Traffic and Safety Committee is whether or not, while they were considering this no parking zone along North Chestnut, if they were considering that whole block to 2 block stretch of North Chestnut between Verplank and Main, and the difference in width across it. It's very narrow when North Chestnut meets Verplank, but widens at various points. And the commenter was talking about the narrowness of North Chestnut overall and whether or not there should be more no parking along North Chestnut than what we're going to potentially approve just now.
Yep.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add is we have that issue on a dozen streets intersecting Main Street, not just North Chestnut. If we were to apply some standard like that, we'd have very little parking on those streets. They're very narrow. They are what they are. But still, I'd like that issue, you know, discussed, right?
Absolutely. Thank you all three for reminding me, refreshing my memory on the exact details of that comment. Definitely we'll put it on for the next agenda for them to look into.
Thank you, Ben.
All right. Anything else on this one? Hearing none, all in favor of the amendments to the vehicle and traffic section of the Beacon Code, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, and then finally, I need a motion, a second, to approve amendments to
Sorry,
the
one question, parking lot, we've passed it. For the change of the Verplank spur, I have a request if we could let the church know. Maybe, I think they have bulletins, because often it's churchgoers who will park along that spur off Verplank. So if we could just, if there's a way to just reach out to them and let them know.
Of course, signage should be a pretty good clue.
Yes, yes, I appreciate that
But
as well,
I'm
so.
with you, which is, yeah, makes some
Yeah.
sense.
Doing some outreach, again, communications.
What's that? Okay, cool. Last one is I'm looking for a motion and a second on a couple amendments to the 2025 budget.
Motion.
Second.
So Amber and Molly. Chris, anything you didn't say about this about an hour ago?
No, I think we covered it.
Okay. So just to be clear, those in favor of increasing the real property item by $27,000 and also recreation fees by the same amount, and then a transfer of $35,000 from repair of equipment from contingency. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. Well, so we still have time for about an hour's debate on the June 16th minutes. Let me start with a motion and a second to approve them, and we'll go into the debate shortly.
Motion.
Second.
So Pam and Molly. Okay, floor is yours.
I have nothing to add. They were amazing, Ben.
It's amazing how when you have 2 weeks between meetings, you get stuff done.
3 weeks.
All right.
3 weeks.
Yeah, that's right, 3 weeks. All right, so all in favor of approving the minutes of June 16th, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? All right. This is the second opportunity for public comment. I see no one in the physical audience who didn't make a comment before, other than Jeff Sims, who's going to be silent. Anyone online, Ben?
No hands on Zoom right now.
Okay, I just want to announce the next meeting will be in 2 weeks on July 21st at 7 PM, which will be a workshop, and we expect that the formal meeting will follow immediately thereafter at approximately 7:45. Be here or be square. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Pam and Amber, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you all.
Thank you, Nick.
Good night.
Thank you. Good
Thanks,
night,
Nick.
everyone.
Thanks.
Recording